All right, good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, 7 p.m., and it's the monthly WPCA meeting. There was a posted agenda. Any proposed changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we will get started. So item number 1 under communications, approval of the December WPCA meeting minutes. Motion to approve. Second, any comments? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Approval of the minutes from the November 20th special meeting public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
I have to abstain from that one because I missed the first description of what you were voting on.
Fair enough. Approval of the November 20th special meeting minutes.
That I can say yes to.
Okay. All right, unanimous, thank you. All right, so I guess to be clear, it was 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing for the first one and 6, nothing for the second. Since Rob missed the approval of December meeting minutes. All right, moving on. Old business. Item number 1, discuss and decide next steps to modifying, clarifying language in the existing sewer line extension. Let's discuss. So I guess we don't need any kind of.
Didn't this get sent to the attorneys?
So what with commission decided at the December meeting that language was going to be provided to me by last Friday. I received some verbal comments from Ron
Okay.
on Friday. I just want to see if there's any other feedback coming from the commission in regards to this item.
And then from there, you're
Well,
gonna,
And I was supposed to, yeah, and then the information I received, I was going to package up and send that over to Phil.
Michelle, I have one other comment to add.
Sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay. Besides the, well, let me just, for the rest of the folks here, just go through a couple of the things that I had jotted down. I wasn't sure on the overreaching on whether we should use the word houses or, like properties or something, because the way Fairfield is moving as far as development and changing of how, are we always going to have houses, in other words, on this? And if that's the case, then forget what I just said. So anyway, the second one is, in the rules, we have it to sign the letter of intent indicating desire from the homeowners. Okay. Should that be done before we do any groundwork on this? Soil samples, things like that? And last but not least, okay. When we did Carriage Drive, were you involved with that, John? Carriage Drive? We had like five houses that we did the road with and all that.
Yep, both Johns were.
Okay. Where's the other John? I'm trying to see him.
Let's see him, Bodie.
Good man, John. We had a guy that was the kind of the point person for the homeowners on Carriage Drive.
Correct.
And I thought that was an excellent idea. So maybe in the rules we ought to have something that says, the group that wants to have the extension made for the sewer, that there's got to be not spokesman, it's got to be a person to go to for questions and answers and things like that, so that it not have 5, 6, 7 or how many houses are going to, not have them all come in and ask the same questions or different questions. Have one person, point person for the actual. It's like a project manager for the homeowners. That's it. I'll shut up.
Yeah, you know what, just to let the commission know, there won't always be a point person as Carriage Drive project, was intact. So, hopefully, there will be point people, but not always that way. So,
But I think that's what Ron's saying is that there should be. So then at least,
yeah,
Yeah,
how do
you
you
just-
get neighbors to, agree on a point person, so.
Well, if they want to have three people show up, then that's okay too. We need to have a communication connection.
yeah, instead of
Somebody's got
talking to four
Yeah.
different people.
Yeah.
All good comments. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Personally, I don't really have many comments other than just, I would want to know Phil's opinions on certain
What would
items and stuff.
you like me to convey to Phil? Because this is 3 items that Ron is suggesting we modify in the existing rule. Does the commission agree with Ron's comments?
I think instead of houses, structures or something to that effect. I mean,
Parcels.
again,
It's more up to, I think those are
it
good.
seems like more of a legal thing than anything else, even with respect to that. I mean, I think the intent is just, yeah, exactly.
Right, and what
who's
about
paying,
environmental assessment?
So, I mean, my understanding was, at least the way the Carriage Drive one worked out, I mean, the onus is on the group of homeowners. I mean, we're not doing any of that stuff, right? We didn't do it on Carriage Drive, at least, like,
No, they had to have like, an affiliation of all the neighbors on that street to agree to sign up for it, because for us to move forward with that. So the point person was the gentleman that took it upon himself to run the community. I think it was 5 or 6, one person, there were 6 houses on that street. One person opted out because they had a new septic system. The 5, he took it upon himself to get all the homeowners in that area to agree upon, the fees and everything else, and come to the meetings.
yeah, so I mean, just taking a quick step back, I mean, the whole purpose of this was that the WPCA would fund 50% or whatever it was in the rule of a project to do a sewer main extension. So if you decide to not even attempt to do something like that, a private developer can come in and just go through our normal process of just tying into our system. You do the sewer capacity study. As long as there's capacity, we're not saying no. With this, there's obviously a lot more due diligence that I don't want personally, I don't want the WPCA to be on the hook for. I think that if this group wants what we're offering, which is basically a 50% grant on new sewer extensions, they need to do all of the prior geotech boring samples, whatever it is that they actually need to do. I know that we're concerned about the soil contamination issue, so
Do
like,
we want to say that in the rule? So the way the language, that we're talking about this today because it was never promulgated into a rule.
right, yeah, exactly,
And so we have an opportunity to massage the language,
exactly.
move in that direction. Do we want to add language that requires environmental assessment as necessary, be required by this is by the homeowner, by the property owner?
Why don't you keep it more broader and just say the commission, in overreaching principle there, just say the commission may ask certain, may require certain tests or flow monitoring to be done to determine if this is it's viable. I think we almost got to keep it open to say, well, you might have to do a soil boring here. You have to do flow monitoring. We're not going to pay for it. You want to do it, you're going to be responsible for it. I think we got to keep it open and almost have the attorney draw something up just to say overreaching principle. Let's try to keep it as broad as we can, because I think that's what it's meant to be. Whereas that if we're
Yeah,
going
I
to ask
agree.
stuff, then
I
we should
agree.
have the right to ask anything.
That maintains our flexibility.
Yeah. I would hate to get all of a sudden tied down to flow monitoring and environmental issues. You never know. there may be something with the road or something, you know, we never know. Maybe there's gonna be rock all over and you're gonna have to have other issues or a hill station.
And this can be as strict as we want it to be because nobody is required to go through this process. You can tie into our system on your own dime as long as you follow the current path to do that. This is for funding. So we can be as strict as we want to.
We should have it in there
I
that
agree.
have the attorney draw something up, just saying that we want broad jurisdiction and we may ask anything. To keep it open. So then you guys can ask something.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, we don't want to get stuck with 50% of a huge environmental issue or jack and bore through ledge and that kind of stuff to put in an impossible or just super expensive new sewer line. So yeah, all of those things I feel like should be on the table.
And then
I mean, I would just ask Phil if he has any sample languages from any other municipality.
That's what I was thinking
He
too.
might have worked with. I
Right.
mean, I started to just a little bit of research. I don't have,
I
my
didn't
breadth
know
of
that.
knowledge on this is close to zero. So would be hesitant to be putting forth any new policy right now, just.
And I wasn't involved in the commission during this, but this was just kind of drawn up for the Carriage Drive, just so we could put Carriage Drive in. So was it even looked at by an attorney at all?
I don't know if it was or not. I mean, yeah, we liked the idea of having Carriage Drive join, and we were sympathetic to the fact that it wasn't going to be cost effective for 4 houses to fully fund that. And so we knew that it was in the best long-term interest of WPCA, so we put up this kind of document to try to support that. So,
But there might be other.
But now we're trying to turn it-
In necessarily the
Right.
best long-term. interest of
Exactly.
WPCA, so we don't want to create a policy that would.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's almost have those ideas, and I hate to say it, send it back to Phil and say, Phil, what do you see here? You know, is there any other towns, or can you provide something and try to blend these in with what you're seeing?
Okay, or I mean, if there's something, if he wants to send it back to us, that maybe we just do, even a
maybe they have
working,
something.
even a working group of just, a few of us to bring back to the commission.
Absolutely, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But yeah, I mean, initial conversation with Phil to find out, is he aware of anybody else even doing something like this? I mean, we're all good intentioned on this, and I'd hate for it to bite us in the butt because
I
we're,
just want to bring up one thing, if you don't mind, that my office is getting a lot of calls from people that want to tie into sewers. So if you could get that done, I mean, if we can make a decision, the wording and everything, so we can move forward, because I think it's for people are gonna want.
but they're gonna look for funding from that tie-in.
I don't know
Again,
about-
really-
if it's just individuals, they wouldn't be eligible for this anyway. This was a community type of project. So.
In other words, like if we could just send them something that says, okay, these are the rules and regulations, and if you want to put it,
I mean, we're a few months out from that.
Yeah.
So if they're looking for funding, they probably have to either wait, but I mean, in any case, if it's a group so we didn't have anything when our case study first came in front of us. So if there is a group right now of 4+ houses that are looking to tie in, they should show up to one of our meetings and have a discussion. They don't need to wait for this thing. If it's 1 or 2 people, I mean, I'm already saying it's not in the WPCA's long-term interest to cover half the cost of a really small project like that. This was a bigger job that had adding a minimum of 4 new customers to our system in perpetuity. So that was worth the upfront capital investment. 1 person, it's going to take forever to make that valuable. That's why we had that, whatever it was, 75% of a minimum of 4. So it's like we were trying to set some sort of a minimum threshold. So.
I also wonder if that threshold is the right threshold, if there's something about distance versus houses, because we may, I don't know if we have areas that are denser than others, and if we're talking about.
They're all probably already on the system, but
I don't
maybe
know.
not. Yeah, exactly.
And, as zoning evolves and things change, is it better to say a certain number of feet of line
Right.
is required and do it that way versus the number of parcels?
Right.
Particularly if parcels start to get combined or uncombined.
Yeah. Yeah, Very good point, and I have no idea what the right answer is there. So.
But do we have any cost analysis by the number of feet, that makes a project viable?
Yeah, means we're adding. We have lots of things to spend money on. Want to be cognizant of. Yeah. Adding,
Yeah, there's that too.
just adding on potentially opening
Right,
up
I
a
mean,
door for.
Maybe this goes away just based on that, like.
We're spending
We
money.
very
that
well may
we-
not have any capital money to put towards these things. So.
Right, but I don't hate the framework being there that if in the
Agree.
future, there's an there's extension of our line and then it opens up the possibility for.
And it could, it could flip the other way in terms of the financial benefit.
Right. And so future commissions may not have to start from scratch. There may be something that never made sense for anyone to use, but we've got something for them to build off of.
Right.
For example, we have that project on Hillside where we just allowed them to join an existing line, but they had to pay the expenses. Let's say 5 other properties up the street wanted to join in now and connect to the sewer. That
And
would
that's
be
what
it,
started
right?
this discussion, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Well,
So if they get 2 more people, then that's what I think you almost gotta have is that it's up to the commission to determine if this is cost feasible. And just leave it up to the commission then. Instead of keep,
Provide to Phil whatever the commission would like me to provide to him. And so if
Yeah,
it
you're
means that he's already received the policy and has reviewed it and asked that I bring it back to the commission to make some decisions or provide specific language, if there was a wish of specific language to be included before it come back to him. But I could bring this list of asks to him, and with the overall ask that, he benchmarked this off of what other communities may have that's similar.
I think that would be a
Okay,
really good next step.
okay. Sounds good. I'll do that. For next month's meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and similarly, just one more point to your point is that, again, if there's benchmarks in place, like there has to be an ROI of a certain number of years for it to be able to come to progress to decision-making on the committee or to the commission. Those types of benchmarks can help protect against us having to start from zero and do an analysis on every project that comes to us. There's sort of like, this passes a threshold to then make some decisions upon.
Sounds good. So we have a plan in place. At least next steps.
kind of,
Bring those comments to Phil and then he'll tell us what he finds, I guess.
Yeah, until I report back.
Okay,
February.
that sounds
This
good.
is gonna be similar item on your agenda.
Right. Discuss, so yeah, moving on to anything else on a sewer line extension. Right, so moving on, discuss and decide next steps to codifying a minimum flow monitoring threshold. That's a new rule. And so just to remind everybody, this was based on, we had someone discuss whether or not they were still required to do flow monitoring on what amounted to less than 1% of a 8-inch pipe's capacity. Technically, right now, the answer is yes, because we don't have any kind of minimum threshold. I brought up in the December meeting, I think it would be beneficial to have some sort of a minimum, but not sure quite how to phrase that and stuff. Where did we leave it? Were we supposed to provide comments? And did you receive any comments?
See if any on this.
Yeah.
Would be comments, would actually be language,
Okay,
right? Because it's a new rule, not working off any baseline.
okay.
Can you remind us what prompted this again? What was the,
So right now, no matter any new connection
right?
requires flow monitoring.
Yep.
To prove that they're not providing any kind of negative impacts to our system. In this case, in the particular example where they were asking, the engineer in me was like, absolutely not. There's no reason to do flow monitoring. You're near the top of a line. it's an 8-inch line, it's more than adequate capacity, and you're impacting it by less than 1% of the pipe's total flow. But we can't just tell anybody you don't have to do flow monitoring, but you do have to do flow monitoring. There has to be a rule behind it, and there currently is none. So right now, if that person wants to tie into our system, they need flow data to support it.
Just as a devil's advocate, why do you have to have a rule? Why can't it just be up to the town and the town or the?
Because if we tell that person that they don't have to do flow monitoring, then the next person that we tell they do have to do flow monitoring will sue us. Almost guarantee
But it's different. But it's a
Would
different,
a,
it's a
would
different.
a 5% increase to the existing flow be a decent minimum to start with, or not enough?
I mean, I'm not sure because it also kind of depends on where in the system it is. I mean, you add 1% to Umpqua,
But that's why.
it's a much bigger
That's
deal.
Why are you putting a rule in where it depends on exactly where you are? If you're going up on hillside there, we saw what the results were. It's like an 8-inch line is only, 15% done. Why are we gonna make someone they're only adding 5%, and we could kind of look at it and say, you're only adding 5%. We know you're fine. That's okay. Why are we gonna make even a percentage rule is gonna be tough. And even if you're gonna be downtown Fairfield, I would say almost anything you're gonna be wanting to do flow monitoring.
So because we've been sued times in my tenure on this board, I want rules that are completely open and transparent to anybody connecting to our system so that we don't continuously get sued. If we're doing things based on standard repeatable practices, then we're either less likely to get sued or at least less likely to lose.
Matt, I agree with you.
I hear you, but what are you gonna determine? Just say like if you go by percentage, say 5%. Say, okay, 5% is a good number, but if you're on Post Road, I would say 5% might be too high. Because if you're at 5% on a 10-inch line or a 12-inch line, that's a lot of gallonage.
Do we have, I mean, I know obviously I don't want to be required to move our smart covers on a constant basis or anything, but how well do we know rough percent capacity of like various areas and stuff?
In general,
Yeah.
I can give you a good idea.
So as we're kind of thinking out loud here and iterating, if a pipe is less than 50% capacity and a proposed development is less than 5% of that pipe's capacity, in my opinion, we probably don't need flow monitoring. Anything that's proposing to tie into a portion of our system in which the current pipe flow is greater than 50%, no matter how little they're adding to it, would require flow monitoring. That way we've got both bases covered. So if it's more than 50% full already, that triggers flow monitoring. If you're impacting more than 5% of the pipe's capacity, it triggers flow monitoring, no matter what the pipe capacity is. Obviously both, of course
But then we're gonna have to do flow monitoring on.
well, that's why I was asking John, if we've got to, so for the 5% piece, that's just engineering calcs. So I mean, that one, it's on the proposed, but if we've got a good idea of,
I can give you a general idea of capacity in an area.
Yeah.
Am I going to say that that's be all end all? Absolutely not.
yeah,
And I don't want somebody coming back and say this, well, you guessed on that one. And you guessed low, you guessed high.
okay.
Where the smart covers are, I can tell you what the capacity is right there, but around the corner and down the street, don't know.
I have a somewhat related question. Is there ever a future where we're using smart covers and people are paying into that versus us requiring them to do flow monitoring?
Yeah, they could,
It's only a portion of our flow monitoring program. If they choose not to do flow monitoring and we require it, then that's a flat rate on their I&I fee.
we would charge them if they don't want to do flow
But
monitoring.
that's not the only reason why we have smart covers, so.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just trying to determine, like, is there a way to use the smart cover program for these ones that may otherwise we just say they don't need flow monitoring?
I mean, when we have a
Expand the
fully
program.
calibrated hydraulic model, then I think we've got a better understanding of flows through the bulk, if not all of the system. But we're a pretty good ways away out from.
But I hear you that you want a rule so you don't get sued, but I think that we have, like you're always looking at that if it overflows, it's on us. I want them to be responsible. I want us to determine if you're gonna be doing flow monitoring or not. I mean, us as the engineers to do, because every situation is gonna be different.
So are you suggesting that the proposer has to show us that that the flow of the pipe that they're tying into is less than 50%?
No, but how are you gonna do that? I think if they're gonna have to come to us with their project, like
I have to
you
do
did,
monitoring to
like
do
what you
that.
did before, and say, this is ridiculous here. It's 250 gallons a day you're adding. Do I have to do flow monitoring? No, you don't.
Maybe the commission would consider just clarifying our existing rules to say at this decision, it would be based on best engineering judgment, something to that effect. I mean, state and federal rules in the Clean Water Act program overall use that type of language, not for this specific scenario, but that can be part of a regulatory
And
framework.
then what you're gonna have to do is say but if you do that, you're gonna have to say our pipe capacity limit is 70%.
You have to put a rule.
No, but if you leave it as best engineering there, but then you're gonna have to have a capacity issue.
That was the thing thrown at 15 Umpqua. Best engineering practices says no greater than 80%. Well, it's not a rule.
Right,
So
But
So we could codify, you know?
you gotta, I would rather codify, the 80% on the pipes and leave best engineering practices for your flow monitoring.
best engineering practices though, then puts the onus on us because we said, well, sounds good. Best engineering practices says, yeah, you guys can tie in. And then they do tie in and then it's shooting out of the manhole covers and then.
No, but if you have any concern, do flow monitoring. Because, or you're gonna have to say, do flow monitoring for everyone, for any connection.
I think this is
Or do
that
that.
area where I think I prefer to have Phil's kind of guidance and where we might be able to go with it. And so I think theoretically, unless anybody else disagrees, the idea of doing it's not required if the pipe is less than 50% full or you're impacting less than 5%. But in areas where we don't know the pipe capacity or can't guess that it's less than 50%, I'm inclined to say you have to, the developer, has to show that the pipe is less than 50%, which may require, but it may require
Flow
some
monitoring.
flow monitoring, but maybe not 2
Right.
weeks. Because if you have a single point that shows that it's less than 50%, then technically, I guess that would be enough to show that you're.
Take it one step forward though. You prove to us that it's less than 50%. Chris gets approved. Chris is building and then Christine comes and says, hey, it's less than 50%. But we haven't taken into account Chris's. We say, okay, Christine, go ahead. And then John comes and says, hey, you guys are less than 50%. These two aren't done yet. And they go on,
That we're in now.
then they go online, it's above 50%. John got pre-passed because it was under 50 when he's applied. I'm just,
Just be careful about getting into the flow monitoring business, guys. So the liability would definitely come, you know.
Hey, Matt,
That we always require it.
Kara?
You agree, Ron?
but just a question, on the flow monitoring itself. I understand what you're doing or what they potentially want to do going forward. But, when we have a developer come in here and present their, case for what the project's gonna be, we have them, do flow monitoring, based on 2 peak areas.
Right.
So, and plus we've got so much development going on around here that it may take a year and a half once you approve something for them to get going on it. Like the Mason place was hung up for like over a year. So you got to be careful what you approve and what you don't approve as far as flow monitoring is concerned.
Right.
I'd rather have them do the flow monitoring closer to when they do the start off or the actual put something in the dirt.
I mean, that point is well taken, Ron. I'd rather require someone who's not impacting the system to throw away money doing flow monitoring than lose our ability to require flow monitoring. So if there's a way to do this without.
Consider bringing to Phil language that requires it. This is always a requirement. Flow monitoring is always a requirement, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my one question would be, is there any way for us to, at our own discretion, say it's not required without opening ourselves up to lawsuits? And if not, then let's just require it everywhere.
I think you could do that.
Be careful.
So,
Be careful.
I'm well aware, Ron. That's why I'm asking the lawyers.
The risk of us.
Yeah.
that would be unfortunate to do a $10,000 of flow monitoring.
Hey,
$250.
that's why I brought this up, because I
It's kind of like.
think it's stupid, but if there isn't a way to use discretion and not open ourselves up to additional lawsuits.
And not be sued, right?
Yeah, I would hope there would be, but.
I would hope so too, but we don't live in a fully logical world, so. Sometimes it's logical. So. All right, so I guess that's the question to Phil. Is there a way for us to use judgment? All right, good conversation. Moving on, new business to review, discuss, and approve PFAS litigation legal retainer.
So a law firm, SGT Law out of Stanford, met with First Selectman Gerber, his office, and myself. And you also met, this was back in early December or November even at this point, to present to us a claim. It's a multi-jurisdictional claim out of South Carolina, I believe, that will hold the manufacturers of commercial products containing PFAS liable for environmental and health outcomes from the contamination. From a town's perspective, we would like to move forward, recommending to move forward to with joining this legal retainer, with joining this action, being a claimant on this case that's been filed, because we could potentially gain monies toward remediating PFAS in our treatment and collection systems. So that's the copy of the retainer that the commission received as backup to tonight's agenda. They're looking for the review, discussion, and approval.
And that retainer document was changed to have you as the signatory, I think, Michelle, correct?
Correct, based on the discussion you and Matt and I had last Wednesday, just ease of
Correct.
signature.
It's easier for her to sign it than me.
Right.
My printer at home doesn't have a scanner. That's literally why.
Pocket money from town or WPCA. The legal fees would only be charged via, if we were to receive an award from this case, once it was settled, it would be a third of settlement costs.
Chris,
Are they going to all the other towns too and presenting the same things?
Yeah. And something similar was done with a suit against the manufacturers of the firefighting equipment. And Stanford had signed on.
The one comment I had is that it seems like this law firm is suing, they're just litigators and they're suing us for other items. And now we're using them to do that. Just, it is what it is. That's how the law firm is. But I thought it was interesting that there's no conflict of interest. The town is being named in this, but how is there no conflict of interest if they're suing the town and the town is named in ours? just a general comment. But you guys are moving, it is what it is. I just thought it was interesting. I'm fine with it.
Wait, say that again?
The town is named in this lawsuit for us, but then they're suing the town on other lawsuits. The town of that the firm is presently representing other parties who have potential claims against the town of Fairfield, not involving the Fairfield entities.
Right, they're asking us to
But
waive.
how does it not involve the Fairfield entities when the town of Fairfield, Connecticut is one of the entities, which I thought was interesting.
We didn't bring that up in our meeting.
So I think there is a conflict, but
Yeah, they're asking us to waive it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, our attorney said there is no conflict.
I mean, it says right here in.
They're asking for us to waive. I thought it was interesting. We're joining a class action lawsuit and they're suing us at the same time in mother suits.
Getting us in on the way in and the way out.
That's just my comment.
Good comments. I didn't pick up on that. I mean, do we have to approve this today?
So it says approve.
What happens if we don't?
To make a decision on it. So it's going to go to the Board of Selectmen Wednesday. And it'll be executed, but if the commission does not agree to sign on, then I'm gonna be able to move forward, or the commission decides not to sign on, at least we need to provide a reason.
What does the town want? The town wants us to sign on.
Who are the claimants here?
Did anybody else have concerns about that? I never noticed.
Anybody else picked up on that specifically?
Because Phil was in that
And
meeting.
he advised that he.
He had advice that we, yeah.
That we-
move forward.
Okay. I mean, if that's council advice,
Have a little concern, but I'm not the one signing.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so.
Just thought it was interesting.
You make a great point. I'm glad you spotted that.
Yeah, exactly. I was fully on board and I'm a little less.
It just, I think this is standard. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Where here it is, I'm sure the guy showed up on the town of Fairfield's doorstep and said, hey, by the way, you have a potential claim here. He's doing it to every town. I know that. Not to be offensive, but they're ambulance chasers. But if that's what the town wants, I'll go along with whatever everyone wants. I'm not gonna.
It's really up to the commission's decision.
Right.
And then the commission provides the reason why, and then I'll convey that to the town.
Sure. What's everybody else's take before we actually vote? Is anybody inclined?
I'm in support of it, and I think the decision of the conflict would not be our decision. It would be Bill's or
Yeah.
the town's attorney.
We're not the ones being sued.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with Bob.
Did I miss, I mean, I know it's just sort of a class action, but, who was doing?
It's the PFAS. It's the people that make the foam.
But they don't list them.
No, it is under the North Carolina website. If you go down to like the North Carolina on it, you have to go back and it's the people that make the foam. And I think it's like 3M. It's 3M. It's a huge. Yeah. It's all that firefighting, which I'm sure they used in the firefighting building before.
And no, it's not the foam, it's the adhesives, it's the, water repellents. all that.
It's a big problem.
Any other comments or? Otherwise, any motions?
Type that in. I don't find it.
Anything else? Motions?
Motion to approve the PFAS litigation legal retainer as presented.
Second?
Second, you got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Operational status updates, bypasses,
Three.
3.
We have a little theme going here too. The first one is on Christmas Day, 15 Pine Tree Lane. We bypassed about 400 gallons. Rags were the cause. Second one was on December 30th, 199 Bronson, again, rags. I didn't write down total, but I don't think it was significant. And to keep with the holiday theme, New Year's Day, 11 Rugby Road. Again, it was rags and about 150 gallons lost.
On a party.
Yeah.
Yep. The Pine Tree Lane, one, actually, there was a lady walking her dog behind McKinley School and she found it and used the Q alert system with the town and
Well, that's good.
yeah, so it's great. That was,
Happy to hear about that.
wasn't great for the
Success story, at
bypass,
least.
but,
Right.
but it works.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
All right. Item number 2, compliance.
Okay, so I got bad news, followed by somewhat good news. First bad news, non-compliant was on December 17th. We were going through microgrid witness testing to finally get our microgrid vetted and online. During that testing, the generator couldn't keep up with the demand that was put on it. The outfall pumps didn't work. We never lost UV disinfectant, but because the pumps didn't work, the channel raised, which messes up the calculation of the UV dose. So it showed a flow of 30 million gallons, which was not the case. It was just backed up in the channel. So we notified the proper authorities. They closed the shellfish beds for a day. We had one test that went above the limit. Another test didn't. They were happy what we did. It was back to normal the next day. They opened the shellfish beds. We will be doing microgrid testing in the near future. They know without a doubt that this can't happen again.
Right.
So we're going to go through a lot of stuff before we do it. Next compliance issue was last Thursday, FedEx was making a delivery at the plant 4 drums of defoamer for the digester. The gentleman was wheeling it to the back of the truck on a pallet jack and he lost control and it launched. 2 barrels broke open. Nobody was splashed. It didn't enter any of the catch basins. Our guys blocked it off. Because we didn't get injured, because we didn't mess up a waterway, I didn't call the fire department. I didn't call deep. Well, by the end of the day, I knew that I had to call both. So anything over 5 gallons has to be reported. So FedEx was on the hook for the cleanup and all that stuff. And we are going over our chemical unloading and we weren't in the proper spot basically because the digester stuff was still in the back. So we're on it. We got it. We're redoing our procedures and everything. So we're on the right path. Third compliance thing, which is kind of the good news, potentially, because of the PFAS, our compost can't be distributed anywhere. Anybody?
That's not good news.
That's a good news.
Storage.
We have limited storage.
Right.
We engaged BDP, the company that makes our compost machine. And 10 years ago, they did a pilot at 2 plants, composting plants in Rhode Island and New Hampshire, where you get to a point, initially you use screened compost to mix with the sludge instead of wood chips. You run that through, it dries as it's going bio drying. So you run it through the process we have now using the existing infrastructure, machinery, personnel, everything, nothing costs, nothing changes. Once you get an initial run through with the screened compost, you take that dry material and mix it with your sludge. And then you just run that through. And then what comes off is even drier and then you just continually, so what you're discharging on the back end, 75% is going back for amendment, 25% needs disposal. 25% of the product, it's 55, 60, 65, 70% dry. So we're reducing the amount, it's drier. Incinerators love it because there's a lot of energy, there's no moisture content. So they're agreeing to do a pilot with us. Doesn't cost us anything. They'll provide the engineering, they'll provide the testing, they'll provide the guidance. If it works, great. If it looks like 3 weeks in, it's not gonna work, we pull the plug and that's that. So we bringing that to you because we're waiting for a proposal. Again, it doesn't cost anything, but we're gonna bring it to the Board of Selectmen because it's longer than 30 days and say, hey, we're gonna try this pilot and see what we can do with it and where we can go with it. So
What are they planning? I mean, that's good news, but what are they planning on doing with it throughout the pilot? Other than just drying?
Well, you're burning it, right? Because you're
Are
sending
they
it.
bringing it to an incinerator?
no,
Have a
Just drying.
disposal outlet.
have a-
We'd be storing it
Okay, so we're just storing them.
until we
Prior.
have yeah, and it's gonna be less,
Right.
potentially open up other multiple disposal outlets, not just incineration, but also landfilling.
Okay.
We can't landfill currently.
But the pilot, though, is purely just the process.
purely just the process. And another benefit too, right now we run 55 and above C as a temperature in the building. This process brings it down below to around 45 C. So the ammonia production is a lot less. Odors are a lot less. So good for us, good for the neighbors, good all the way around. Hopefully. So we'll have more
That's
news
a-
once we get it.
That's a very positive change. I mean, otherwise you're gonna have a storage problem by the middle of March, right?
Well, we're still gonna have a storage problem.
But there,
Just maybe not as early in March.
Depending on when this process starts.
Right.
And at least potentially more options with it, though.
For disposal, yeah.
And no cost to us, doesn't require any additional equipment investments, no additional human resources from our team of operators.
So who makes money in this process then? For bio drying, like
it,
who benefits besides, the town of Fairfield, because we have a method of reducing the moisture content and then giving us some more outlets to dispose of it.
I think it benefits the Northeast with the situation we're in with sludge disposal. There's other composting facilities. Right now, they've got an outlet. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So this is a new thing. Something they tried to get hold of 10 years ago that didn't catch on, but they're hoping it does now. And I don't know who profits from it because BDP's already got composting machines in these facilities and everything, but they initially started this 10 years ago because the Chinese were interested in doing it. But back then it was, hey, composting's working. Why are we gonna, why change? We just do what we're doing.
This just makes it drier and more concentrated?
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like a pellet.
But this is just a free trial.
Free trial.
It costs money afterwards. That's how they make it.
Would they use it for
Right.
amendment or they would burn it for like a fuel, like?
You could use it as a fuel because it's so dry. You could use it if, depending on how it comes out at the end,
Yeah.
you could use it as a soil amendment.
How it's processed.
Yeah.
So to speak.
There's a whole lot we still gotta learn.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We're just anxious to hopefully start, give it a whirl.
But this has no impact on the concentration of PFAS in it, then.
We're still screwed.
It's a treat for PFAS.
Right.
I'll just tag on to the compliance report out. So the sewer department, John and I have executed enforcement authority under WPC's rules and regulations. We issued a notice of violation to Unlimited Excavation and Construction out of Orange based on a complaint and evidence of noncompliance we received from a customer. The NOV was issued on January 2nd and a response due within 30 days. So February 2nd, we should receive response or a request for a hearing in front of this commission from the respondent.
What do they do?
Yeah, what was the nature?
They performed the work and closed the excavation without notifying us that inspection was needed.
Huh.
And then the work, from the evidence provided to us from the customer indicated that the work performed was faulty.
So they covered the ditch before we could get out there for inspection, so to speak.
And now it doesn't work, so that's why the customer.
Have it. Traction with that contractor. Yeah. Spent a lot of money with another contractor. I'm happy.
Thank you, guys. Anything else on compliance? Any questions? On WPCF benchmark.
Our next trip is next Thursday at 11 in Milford. Matt is going, Michelle is going, and so am I. Anybody else is welcome to tag along. If you can make it, just reach out to one of us. We'll give you the details and we'll see you there.
Next Wednesday?
Next Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, we're meeting in Milford around, I think it's 11.
11.
Would like to go, but I'll be out of town. I'm sorry to
Housatonic
miss it.
plant. At the Housatonic plant. They have 2 plants.
That's good. Moving down the list, capital improvement projects updates. Item number 1, secondary digester cleaning and repair.
Completed. We started transferring sludge last Monday, the 6th. Is it the 6th? Yep. Spectra Serve then cleaned up the site, removed the tanks. Everything is out. Everything is as it should be. Varick is coming on Tuesday to set the pressure relief. Whatever else we need him to do. And then on Wednesday, the rep is coming for the grinder. That'll be blessed and they have a little touch-up painting to do when it gets warm. And other than that, they did a good job. They were we had a good relationship. We had a good project with them as far as the plant's concerned.
Any questions? All right, item number 2, phase 1 and 2 pump stations.
Presentation for you guys. You think I can connect my laptop?
Well, you're gonna try it. We're gonna see what happens.
Hopefully we won't lose the
Yeah.
folks.
If we lose you guys, I'll get you back. Don't worry.
Let's do this.
At least we don't need them anymore. No offense, guys.
Also printed out copies just in case. I actually have it on a thumb drive.
Rob, can you hear us?
Yep, I
Loud
can
and-
hear you.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Sorry, we lost you there when they plugged in.
No issue. We're good.
Thumb drive. I don't know if I can just connect it to the system or maybe not, I guess.
I don't know.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
All right, okay. Is this the right place to stand or you want me to stand there?
Hit the start video button. They can see us again.
Um,
No.
Here, come over here.
Yeah, here we are. All right. So I'll start off with a brief introduction about myself, background on the project, and then give you guys a status update on where phase 1 and phase 2 are. So I'm Prashant Emmanuel, we go by Emmanuel. I'm a senior project manager. I have close to 19 years of experience in the wastewater industry, primarily working on wastewater treatment processes, pump stations, upgrades of large treatment plants similar to the size of Fairfield, and also working on projects that include progressive design builds, things like that. So the second slide provides a snapshot of the SAB plan. So back in 2018, the town completed a facilities planning study for the pump stations. So there are 8 pump stations in the town, and of the 8, 1 pump station has been upgraded to date. So as part of that facilities planning study, the AP plan was presented and developed, and timeline was presented. So this slide actually shows, it's slide 2 that shows the timeline of when the pump stations would be upgraded. So the critical ones based on funding already in Center Street Pump Station, Pine Creek Pump Station, and Fairfield Beach Pump Station. Those would be upgraded first, and then after that, the remaining 4 pump stations were scheduled to be upgraded. So in for our study, we've split that 7 pump stations into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Slide 3 shows a summary of the scope of work for our study. So basically the goal for the study was to come up with a design approach for the 7 pump stations, and based on the similarities of the design approach, try to combine them so that you can cut down costs, and also confirm that whatever CIP timeline is presented in the plan, the upgrades would meet that, or if not, should we move that at a sooner date so that they could be done sooner. So yeah, that slide just provides an update on scope. Slide 4 is the update on phase 2, which is the Toll House, Mill River, Eastfield, and Willow Street pump stations. Our fee for that project it's a study. Our fee was $235,000. Total expended to date is $178,000. We were low just because some scope was eliminated from the town by the town on that project. So that's why we were at 178. So right now this project is completed. The TP was issued in December 2023. We submitted the draft in July of 2024. It was due June 2024. We submitted it in July. We received comments from the town September 6th, and then the final report was provided October 18th. So the good news on that is the pump station upgrades as per the timeline can remain as is for most of the pump stations except for the Mill River Force Main. And I'll talk more about that once we get to the slides. So slide 5 is upgrade recommendations for the 4 pump stations that are scheduled at a later time. The bullet 1 for all 3 stations show the age or when the pump stations were constructed. You can see bullets 2 and 3 for each of the stations have the same theme. That's replace the pumps, pipes, fitting, and replace the electrical infrastructure and controls just because of the age of the system. One thing to note is that the Willow Street pump station is actually a compressor style station, and that's being recommended to be replaced as a submersible style station and a valve waltz because it offers operator accessibility, safety. So that's why we're changing that to a submersible style station. All 3 stations will have generator hookup connections, except Toll House. It will actually house a new standby generator. It currently has a standby generator, so that will be replaced with a new one because that's aged and with a new natural gas generator. In terms of flood resiliency, the only station that's impacted on this slide is the Toll House pump station. So when we did our structural inspections, we've seen floors on the cracks on the CME walls, and the lures are actually below the flood elevation. So the goal over here is to demolish the above grade structure and just rebuild it, relocate the lures, and retrofit this new building with new flood doors and bigger, wider flood doors for generator access, plant staff access into the building. In terms of force main upgrades, I'll start with the easy one. Eastfield Drive Pump Station. It has a PVC force main, has a total life of 50 years. Right now it's at 30 years. We've recommended keep it as is because it has still 20 years of remaining life. Willow Street and Toll House, our recommendation was to replace the force mains. Toll House is a critical one, but not critical, but it's a tricky one because a portion of it runs under Route 15. So what we recommended was replace it with a combination of open cut and CIPP. So anything under Route 15 would be CIPP and outside would be open cut. So jumping on to slide 6 is the Mill River Terrace Pump Station. This is one of the largest pump station in town of Fairfield, constructed in 1980. So our recommendation there was, the town's doing a lot of II work and this would be upgraded at a later date. So we recommended install a flow monitoring system right at the inlet of the pump station to identify what the flows are. That way we can size the pumps based on the flows coming into the station and also upgrade the electricals, the controls, and also confirm the generator sizing as well to see if it meets the increased pump sizing. Flood resiliency here is retrofit the existing building with new flood doors, put in flood baffles along the louvers. It has close to 5 to 6 louvers along the perimeter of the building, and then also add in a breathable water resistant sealer on the outside so that it minimizes any water entering into the building. So for Toll House, Mill River, we did do a resiliency analysis to confirm that this can counteract buoyancy, and both the pump stations can certainly do that. Moving on to the force main, there are 2 force mains right now for Mill River. One is actively used, one is a spare one. So we've tested the active line using ICA testing, and it found 7 potential leaks. So next steps were to do a test bit, but then in order to do that, the goal is to transfer the flow into the spare line, but that spare line was flooded, had roots in it, so we couldn't do that. And town did CCTV inspection, so we viewed that CCTV data, and the recommendation was to replace it with open cut and CIP. That's the recommendation we've made, and we also submitted a proposal for that. So that's
Sorry, on that, the plan is to just replace the spare?
we've suggested to do both, but again, we'll work with the town on. Well, talk about another slide and then I'll stop and ask, see if anybody has any questions on phase 2. So that's the cost we presented for phase 2. We've used 15% for overhead and profit, 20% for technical services, 5% for the town administrative costs, if they have any like easements that they need to obtain, any staffing for the town to oversee the project. And then since this will be done at a later stage, we added a 40% contingency, close to 4 million. And based on the similarities of the pump stations, this is how we combined bundled the stations. The first one would be upgrade of the force main. Eastfield, Toll House, Willow would be upgraded together. Then the force mains would be upgraded for Toll House and Willow Street, and then Mill River at a much later. The last one would be the last one we get. So yeah, I'll stop and I'll see if anybody has any questions on phase 2 before I jump on to phase 1.
Questions? I guess I just have one, with respect to the Mill River force main. So if we do both, I don't know if it would be part of the Mill River pump station or part of the force main rehab. Would we add some sort of actuator? Would we actually use the spare? Because I suspect that's one of the reasons why it was in such bad condition. Pipes that are in the ground left empty.
Yep.
don't usually fare that well, so.
Absolutely. So the valve wall right at the station, that's where we can add an actuator and the town staff can switch flows and certainly, yeah, as part of the, so that would be, the actuator would be installed as part of the force main upgrade or the pump station upgrade too, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Alrighty. We'll move on to slide number 8. So that's the upgrade for phase 1. Those are the 3 stations which were scheduled to be happening sooner on the CIP plan. Our fee on that is close to 191,000. We're close to that fee now since the project is almost complete. Timeline on that, notice to proceed was May 2024. The draft was due December, so we submitted that on the 13th. We did receive comments from the town last week, and we're meeting with Michelle and the engineering to go over the comments on the 3 pump station. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, yeah. Yeah. And so all 3 pump stations, phase 1 pump stations, are receiving comprehensive upgrades due to their location and flooding impacts. So below you can see Fairfield Beach Pump Station and Force Main is actually in a BE zone, and Center Street Pump Station and Pine Creek, Center Street and Pine Creek Pump Station, Force Main are in an AE zone. So if you look at slide 9, that tells you what that means. To the left is a picture showing the different zones which FEMA uses. WEE is the zone where you have high wave impacts greater than 3 feet. So the construction requirements in that area is much more stringent compared to that of an AE zone to make sure that it can overcome the loads. And on the right side is what shows the loads a structure can experience when it's flooded. So the top one shows buoyancy pushing the building up when the water level rises, and also hydrostatic forces pushing the water into the force of the water into the building. And the one below also shows frontal impacts, any debris coming in and damaging the structure, and also any negative pressure or suction pressure on the downstream end, just because the water is pushing the structure. So yeah, Fairfield's in a VE zone, and both Center Street and Pine Creek are in an AE zone. So we looked into these 3 stations in detail. The first one I'm going to talk about is Fairfield Beach Pump Station. This was constructed in 1959. The right side, the top photo that you see, that shows the flood protection requirement of elevation 18. So the flood could rise up to 15, but if you make it deep, requires you to protect it up to 18. The goal here was have that electrical building, that yellow building that you see, the lowest horizontal floor to be above that elevation 18 requirement. That way, in any flooding condition, it remains dry. And the rest of the bottom portion, which is also shown in the lower level, so it's too small to see. So that would be just like cut to grade and put a new roof slab in, and access hatches would be provided. So our intention was to keep this as a wet well dry well station, because right now it is a wet well dry well station. But based on our structural analysis that we did, it would require significant reinforcement, like both inside. If you do it inside, then it's compromising the wet well volume, the area to lay out the pumps, so you really can't do it inside. If you do it outside, you really need to excavate everything and reinforce it. So we tried to switch it into a submersible style station, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide. So this upgrade will have new electrical controls, new foam engine there, so that it operates in an island mode. And then Force Main is different alternatives, and it seems like open cut is the lowest cost option to replace the station. So slide 11 shows the concept plan. To the left is where that the below grade structure will be at the grade elevation. A new roof slab would be poured, and then to the left on either side of the existing structure, we'll have micro piles, a pile cap, and then columns sticking out of the building to support the new electrical building, and stairs on the side. So that will house the generator, all the electrical controls. And that will have the WPCF the ability to operate in an island mode where it's flooded, they can operate it from the plant. To the right is actually shows the plan and section view. So right now, which is what is the wet well, we'll fill it up and make that into a valve wall. So that's on the right side. And the left side, which is the dry well, we'll change that into a submersible style station. And we'll refine this more once we do geotechnical and finalize our costs on this as well. So that's Fairfield Beach. And moving on to slide 12 is Pine Creek Pump Station. So right now that's a can style station. The recommendation was to move to a submersible style, because that improves operator access and safety as well. And the building that just sits on it houses some panels. So the goal is to eliminate that style of a station, put a new submersible style station. So the picture below, it's kind of hard to see. It shows the existing pump station. And so I don't know. So this is the existing pump station over here. And we would be building it at the back because it's all town property. So we'll have a similar elevated building, similar to Fairfield Beach Pump Station, where all the electrical equipment will be housed in there. And then we'll have a 5-foot diameter wet well, a valve wall, electrical controls, and a standby generator. Force main is pretty small, has a lot of things, so the recommendation is to do it, replace it by an open cut method. Center Street Pump Station, this was constructed in 1965. So this has flooding impacts too. The left side shows the actual pump station structure. The right side is where the generator structure is. Generator is located and the structure over it. And there's an arrow that shows how the building is not connected to the footing. So in case of flooding, that can have a tendency for the building to float away. So our recommendation here is, again, for the main pump station, demolish the above grade structure, rebuild the CMU wall, put in flood doors, and the lowers and the windows would be above the flood elevation, replace all the electrical infrastructure, new pumps, new piping. And then the generator, the goal is to, when we build the new pump station structure, it's hard to see, it'll probably be a square shaped building, and we would hide the generator behind it and try to enclose that. So this is a historical site. I've run the Fairfield Marathon a few times, so very familiar with how the location is. So we'll definitely work with the town to make sure it meets the aesthetics of that area. Yeah, so force main goes through properties like people's backyards. So our recommendation is to replace that with open cut. It also goes through some portion of wetlands as well. Next slide shows the cost breakdown for each station. One thing I want to mention is under technical services, engineering design, this cost has already been provided to the town, so that wouldn't be included, but we just put that in there to get a total amount. And just the way Fairfield Beach and Pine Creek are being built and recommended. So we recommended that we would build that, combine that, bundle that into one project, and also upgrade the force main for Fairfield. And then project 2 would be upgrade for the Center Street Pump Station, force main, and Pine Creek force main as well. So that's an update on phase 1. I feel like I went by fast, but I'll stop and any questions I can go back and certainly answer.
Would the PowerPoint presentation be something that you could see the distribution for the commission, especially for the circle?
Any other questions?
Yeah. The last page has my email. You can certainly reach out to me and or Michelle can forward any questions.
Are all these on town property?
Yeah.
Or-
Actually, yes, the middle of the street.
Is it
It
easement?
has to be an easement.
Easement, yeah. But it's in somebody's,
Somebody's backyard. It's submersible now.
compressor style.
Your style, yeah.
You can't even access the pump. I mean, there's no pumps, there's an air compressor. There's a cylinder where, enclosed cylinder where wastewater goes into that. And then you use the air compressor to pressurize that cylinder to pump the wastewater out. Yeah, so it's hard to access anything. Every time, get in, take them.
And I assume all the ones that, obviously there's more significant dollars allocated to the ones that need, like senior and blood cells. There's no other solutions that we could be doing these rather than rebuilding them for nearly $5 million. Yeah.
You'll have
That would be way more expensive. Try and relocate a pump station.
Yeah. Were you anticipating a lot of resistance from neighbors when we launched this thing 15 feet in the air?
Fairfield Beach, yep.
Yes, we are.
Are we looking at raising all of them as opposed to other measures or?
just Fairfield and Pine Creek.
Okay.
Yeah. But the house,
Was there a plan at one time to make the Fairfield Beach Pump Station architecturally resemble Penfield Lighthouse?
Yeah.
I seem to remember.
Yeah,
about that.
it wasn't our idea, but the idea was
Out there.
start with.
We can find some other way to make it look nice.
I don't know why you would want to draw attention to it, make it just.
Right, exactly.
But the house
Am I-
next to the pump station to the right side is similar. It's elevated on columns and it's high. Yep.
It looks like a pump station.
Yeah.
It's a square, look at that, it's a square building in gray, so that's it, we match.
We could swap, maybe we could swap.
You could go and talk to him.
Get right on that.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Moving down the list, other. Number one, PFAS monitoring at WPCF.
So you received the chart bill update on this. This to bring to the commission's attention that nationally, USDA yesterday can't speak straight anymore. I've been up so late today. They have shared their draft risk assessment on PFAS and sewage sludge and biosolids. It focuses on land application and risks associated with such. And so this is a huge milestone nationally. This was expected to be released by end of calendar year 2024. EPA did make good on that promise. This does in no way impact any regulation coming, could impact future federal regulation, but this in no way is any type of regulatory control on PFAS and biosolids at this point in time. This is purely research and informational. It's to be used as guidance for other regulatory authorities. So I just wanted to let you know that's out there. I shared some general information and a link to a fact sheet in regards to this risk assessment, this draft risk assessment. It's out for public notice for the next 60 days. When this comes to us, see, Connecticut is ahead of the curve. And so we didn't wait and we didn't perform any risk assessment within the state of Connecticut, which is why we are grappling with the state's current legislation. You know that we have limited capacity. We have about 1,000 cubic yards of our composted biosolids being staged at Denali We Care facility right now. There's total capacity of about 2,500 cubic yards available. That'll bring us to about mid-March. That was previously discussed here tonight. John and I and our chemist Shelby Nemick, we're actively working with representatives from We Care Denali on finding alternative approaches to managing our biosolids. They've really stepped up in that assistance for us. I've also reached out to the biosolids coordinator at the New England Interstate Water Pollution Control Commission, as well as EPA Region 1, sharing all correspondence that Fairfield WPCF has had with our state liaisons at Connecticut Deep. So trying to get all hands on board with knowing what challenges that we're faced with, just because we are so unique within Connecticut, but definitely not unique nationally. When you take a look at just the general statistics that was shared by EPA, you know, land application is the primary form of management for biosolids nationally. So we're not alone in this. Actively working with also the executive director of the Northeast Biosolids and Residuals Association. Janine, she is going to be a champion for this, for us in front of her cohorts at State of Connecticut Deep as well. So we have a lot of people who are looking out for us when it comes to our current situation. We expect to have some costs estimates for the alternatives that Denali is helping us identify by early February. So we have a follow-up call with those representatives February 7th. So I'll have an update at our February meeting and what that looks like.
Sounds good. What's their role in the pilot, Denali? Do they have one? Or?
No.
No.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Other questions? Last but not least, capital improvements and long-term financial plan.
For last.
They have the best for us.
Honestly, this is just the start of the discussion, right? So these are two huge things for WPCA. Shared as backup to tonight's agenda was preliminary draft capital improvement plan. It's a plan that I'm certain you've all seen a different format of it before. This is, it should be a more inclusive, holistic. And projects have been added to this plan. Also, schedules have been moved a bit. There are some unknowns. One being part of what Emmanuel, what he presented, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. What he presented this evening in regards to how the pump station Force Main project is being recommended to be bundled. So that would affect scheduling and what you see on this draft capital plan. We have the whole PFAS and sludge management issue that we have to compensate for in some way because we don't know the costs associated right now. We don't have that identified on the plan. That's also going to be an impact on our operating budget as well, for sure. And site contamination. And so the PCB contamination on the site on which the WPCF sits is something that we need to be able to account for. We don't have a cost estimate for that. In talking with folks within the town who have been working through much larger site contamination issues. We have an active notice of violation issued to WPCF to address this. That's going to be a part of a much larger strategy to address contamination holistically at town properties on highway. But we're going to be encountering this sooner rather than later because of the upgrades that we're going to be embarking on at the plant. So first upgrade on our list is UV system. That's going to require us to dig in the ground. We're going to have to start dealing with site contamination. So it's just a tag on cost to what our cost estimates are for the projects. So just for something for us to be aware of. And that does need to be included in this plan. It's not right now. That's the capital improvement plan. Let me know if you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to elaborate on the best I can before we move to just a really broad view of the financial plan. Again, you're going to see both of these documents, in a more updated form next month. The draft financial plan is going to go for the second time in front of the Board of Finance on February 6th. Board of Finance reviewed this draft that's yours, that's back up to tonight's agenda for this meeting last Thursday and provided homework assignments that the Finance Department and I are currently working through.
Questions on the capital plan? Financials?
Okay, financials. So as I mentioned, this plan that you're seeing tonight for financials reviewed by Board of Finance on the 9th. They provided us feedback. I'll go over some of the key highlights of the feedback and the elements that we're still working through. So one of the top elements for this commission to be aware of is the rate projection. And the rate projection we're looking at for fiscal year 26 is larger than what we typically see. So we would typically be looking at 4 to 5% increase, and we're looking at something that's close to double digits or exceeds 10%. Increase in revenue due to, so part of this to understand too is increases in revenue through this evaluation that we performed is actually due to our rate increases and not increase in consumption. When we see that bump up in revenue, it's not because we have more users using more water. It is because we're increasing the rates annually. Something for the commission to consider as we move forward to help with that significant bump up in the rate would be to increase permit and I&I fees. That could help us smooth the rates moving forward. I know Matt, you and Rob and I have talked about, and I think I briefed the commission just at a very high level of a cost of service study. This is something that Greater New Haven, WPCA, is required to do through its ordinance on an annual basis. I would recommend that WPCA take that on as well. I think that there is agreement amongst the commission that we move forward on a cost. I would like to do so as part of this long-term financial plan. Again, this long-term plan is based on our capital plan. And so as our capital plan changes and flexes, it's meant to be somewhat flexible. This financial plan is going to have to accommodate that.
The roughly 10% increase projection, that would be a single time, a one-time, not a.
Time, a big jump, yeah, and then we revert back to the 4 to 5%. So,
Is there any discussion, further modeling or anything of potentially 2 years of 6 or 7 instead type of thing, or?
I brought that to Sabrina Bernardi, who's an analyst, and she was not keen on that. She had suggested that we would be better off in looking at where we could bring in the revenue from other sources.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So again, the February 6th, the Board of Finance is looking for a more final plan. Part of that, they're looking for a formal written funding policy statement identifying a threshold that WPCA can assume through its own finances to pay for our capital, support our capital projects before we seek town funding at some percentage. That's something that David and I have been tasked with. 6.
And would we have an MOU? Wasn't there discussion on having an MOU just in terms of approach on that?
The discussion on that,
And
yeah.
how we would decide which projects potentially would be.
So what I'm thinking and what I'm going to recommend, at least internally before we go to Board of Finance, is that we create buckets. So by that, I mean, we have different categories of projects. So we have, plant upgrades, collection and conveyance system. Then I'm thinking there might be a third bucket for the other stuff, right? Operational, administrative type expenses that do rise above the 150. And they would fall on our capital plan and outside our operating budget. And then we'd have to have a reason for such. So is it because we're expanding capacity, supporting a changing customer base? Is this just routine maintenance, upgrades and repairs? We would need to
Yeah, exactly.
accommodate ourselves.
What would you need from the board to start looking into the cost of service study? I feel like that's something that needs to be done sooner than later.
I agree. I think actually feelers for what service providers might be out there. Greater New Haven had been using Arcadis. I spoke with Arcadis. They're sort of veering away from providing those types of services. So again, when we do go out to bid on this, it would be great to have just the list that we can provide to purchasing. To advertise them.
But you don't need any kind of approval from us ahead of going out for procurement or anything, right?
I don't believe that I do. The cost is gonna be it's gonna be less than $40,000. The quote that I have just from what New Haven did last year with Arcadis was 35.
Okay. Sounds good. Did you get a sample RFP or anything?
I didn't, but I could definitely get that, yeah. Questions?
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, and you're going to see this again. In final form, yeah, but this is a start. It's actually a pretty robust start too.
And the cost of service, like what exactly would that be? Is that looking at more the rates and how to put them like commercial, residential, multi?
That's part of it.
And more splitting all that instead of just one general rate?
Right.
Okay.
Anything else? Right. Thanks, Michelle. Any motions?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you,
Aye.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Michelle.